On May 16th of 1999, 20th Century Fox released the most anticipated movie of the 20th century.
Bartok the Magnificent.
Ta-da!
Everyone's favorite bat is back.
Right back at you, my friend.
No, not that one. That one. Episode 1 blew my fucking mind when I was a kid. It was the first Star Wars movie I ever watched, and I immediately fell in love with everything about it. The different worlds, the characters, the music, the fucking space wizards with the laser swords. I love that shit. Matter of fact, the second we got out of that cinema, I forced my mom to buy me one of those cheap-ass lightsabers you could get at Toys R Us, and I pretended to be a Jedi for months. I worshipped this movie when I was younger. So you can imagine my surprise when, a few years later, I went online to check out the reviews.
This movie was crap. And I mean really crap. That was George Lucas thinking. Phantom Menace is perhaps one of the worst films I had. A tremendous disappointment.
And this wasn't happening just on IMDb. Every major review site on the internet had scathing reviews of episode 1, to say nothing of all the YouTube videos that crucified it. Finding out that so many people hated this movie really bummed me out. It made me feel sort of ashamed to admit it was one of my favorite films. It felt like being a Nickelback fan. You know, you had to keep that shit a secret, otherwise everyone would attack you. And so from that point forward, I started checking movie review sites before watching anything. Nowadays, sites like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes have become sort of the new measuring stick for a film's quality. Rotten Tomatoes especially has gained a lot of mainstream attention, with A-list actors casually mentioning their scores during interviews.
You don't try to buy into too much of the critics, but it is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. But you watch this young, I just want to let you know.
This just goes to show you how seriously some people take these ratings. However, the problem with this is that if you only watch films based on their score, you often miss out on a lot of good shit. I used to be the kind of guy who would only watch a film if it had a score of 8 on IMDb. But then in 2009, something interesting happened. Against all of my better judgment, I went to see Watchmen with my friends. Now, this was one of the rare cases where I didn't check any reviews before watching the film. In fact, the only reason I knew Watchmen existed was because I had seen its trailer on YouTube, and I wasn't too impressed. To give you some context, this is back when superhero movies were really starting to kick off. The previous year had the first Iron Man, which basically launched the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then on that year you also had Wolverine Origins coming out. So the genre is really coming into its own as the next staple of true American popcorn films. But Watchmen looked very underwhelming in comparison to other titles. Not to mention the fact that all its characters looked like very cheap knockoffs of other well-established superheroes. Looking back, I'm not really sure how my friends managed to convince me to watch this movie. But I'm really glad they did, because Watchmen ended up being one of my favorite films of all time. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I only liked the film because my expectations were so low. And you have a point. Having no expectations definitely helped. But the thing is, I didn't just like this film. I loved every second of it. I loved its themes and complex narrative. I loved its insane level of visual storytelling. I loved the depth and nuances of all its characters. I loved the fact that it wasn't a conventional superhero film, but a critique of the genre itself. Hell, I even loved its take on religious iconography. This film is a true work of art and an absolute masterclass in modern filmmaking. Yet you'd be hard-pressed to find a movie that got critics more divided. Reviews for this film are all over the place. IMDb gave it a 7.6, but then on Metacritic it only scored a 56. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 64% fresh rating. But then when you read the reviews, you either have people singing its praises or hating it with a passion. Matter of fact, in a funny little twist, all of the friends I watched it with completely hated this film. It kinda took me by surprise, to be honest. But unlike with episode 1, I didn't feel that bummed that people didn't like it. I didn't feel ashamed that it was one of the best movies I had ever seen. I knew Watchmen was a masterpiece. I knew this because I had seen it for myself. I had experienced it. And this made me realize that watching a film is a deeply personal experience. No one can see a film through your eyes. In every single movie you've ever watched, there are details that only you paid attention to. A look in an actor's eyes, the way they said a very specific line.
What? Things you own end up owning you.
Or even the significance of a certain gesture. It's impossible for everyone to pay attention to all these little details in a single viewing. And that's also what makes movies so much fun to discuss. There's thousands of different perspectives you've never even considered. However, when you prevent yourself from watching a film based on a bad review, you're also depriving the world of your perspective. And to be frank, most movie critics are pretentious idiots who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I mean, most of them never even picked up a camera in their lives. And make no mistake, the only thing that can truly qualify you to be a professional movie critic is if you've made a movie before. Doesn't matter if it's a short film, doesn't matter if it's a feature-length documentary. If you've never made a movie before, you are not professionally qualified to critique one. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying to stop reading movie reviews. What I'm saying is that before you do that, you should form your own opinions first. Find your own perspective before being influenced by someone else's. So the next time you see a trailer that really intrigues you or a movie poster that catches your eye, don't read anything about it. Just go and watch it. Find out what it's about by yourself. Sometimes you'll see things you don't like, but every so often, you might stumble upon a hidden masterpiece.